You guys good?
Just gonna be packing and doing stuff.
Just gonna be packing? Alright. What's up, you guys? It's your boy 3 in this thing, baby. Representing TKOG. And I'm showing you guys it's pretty gas, bro. It's cooler than TENPAI and it's a lot funner than Snake Eyes. It's Fiend Link, right? It's definitely Magical Musketeers in their purest form. Utilizing one of the best engines that came out not too long ago. One of the engines that is supplementary for a lot of decks, but for this deck, it can be considered the main engine. The way it's comprised is it pretty much allows you to see your main engine. The Fiendsmith cards are really, really strong. They enable a lot. They boost the consistency of this deck while also decreasing and minimizing the amount of bricks that you would have to play. The Musket deck was able to play a lot of engine and get away with it. It was never really like a bad deck. It was just an okay deck. The normal summon was one of the most obviously easy to telegraph choke points of the deck. But right now, it's pretty well positioned. It's utilizing some of the best Fiend cards. A lot of the decks that I like this format utilize the Unchained cards and the Fiendsmith cards, and the Muskets are able to do the same. They can produce really, really absurdly overpowered inboards, in my opinion, off of just one card. And it's in comparison to what Muskets were doing going first before, which was pretty much nothing. You had some nice hands where you could literally end on Max Dweller and a Musket Spell Trap, which was really still not that great, and it took so much. So I really appreciate what the Fiendsmith cards did for the deck. They really put it over the top. The consistency is there. I think the resiliency is there. I always blind second in Muskets ever since Max came out. I feel like this is a house of a card. It's actually absurd what this card is able to do for this deck. It's really, really powerful. And this enables this deck to produce one-card combos with any Musket because Max is just an extra name engraved for you to have targets for your Fiendsmith. So, yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about the Supplemental Engine. And I think that this deck's matchups are really good all across the board. I think it's able to break pretty much any board that's not a Gimmick Puppet FTK. It's really, really strong. Let's go ahead and get started with our 3 copies of Phantasme. Phantasme in this deck works in multiple things. I know that Voiceless Voice is not that popular right now. What I enjoy is Phantasme A allows you to dig into your engine, and B, it's able to counterplay cards that can actually spot removal your Muskets, because your normal summon is a choke point, and this card is definitely able to insulate certain cards for you. So it's pretty pivotal in my opinion. I do play 3 copies of Mocharmy because I do blind second. This card's extremely nice. Most of the time, it's only going to draw 2. I don't think anyone in their right mind would not play into this card because, bro, they're probably going to think you're on TENPAI and you're just going to wax them. And then I also play the Spice. This card's pretty nice. I played 3 Viper Gearsuit. I'm just testing this over Droplets. I think Droplets has utility-based-esque application that definitely diversifies how it can be used a little bit more. But we'll talk a little bit about this card in a second. I'm also on 3 Talents, which is very similar to the Viper. And I also play 3 Link into the Brains. This card's really phenomenal. This card's over the top good. And then I play Double Goods and 1 copy of Black Gold Laughs. This was actually Fiendsmith in Paradise. I think this card enables the deck to actually extend and also start. It makes Foolish Barrel Goods a starter and an extender. Because you're always going second, and a lot of decks are actually ending on IP, and they're going to trigger this trap. And it's going to either dump a Fiendsmith so that you have an engraver to play with, or it's going to dump out your Desiree, and Desiree's just going to sniper card for you. So it's a pretty nice trap. I think the widespread coverage that Black Gold Laughs gives you is just better. There's just more applications where this card's just better, honestly, especially playing into an Appaloosa. It's clean with it. So Viper Gearsuit, if you guys don't know what this card does, I'm just going to read it to you. It's actually bonkers, and the main application I play it for is actually for the hand-esque effect. It's very similar to Talent. It basically can neutralize hand traps, because your opponent has basically no choice, really. So how it works is if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters than you do, so they could just have 2 monsters, you can have none. They can send any number of monsters they control to the grave, after which you apply the following effect based on the numbers of monsters your opponent controls. 0, your life points become halved if they have 0 monsters. If they have 1, your opponent is going to gain 2,000 life points. If they have 2, you're going to banish all cards in your opponent's hand into the end phase. That effect right there, that's the sweet spot. That's the only reason why I'm playing this card. Everything else can come up, but the 2, My opponent's often going to end on at least 2 monsters, and I can activate this. There's not a lot of Omni Negates going around, and like outside of Desiree, there's really just not a lot of decks putting out Omni Negates. Yubel is pretty much the only deck that can put out 2 Omni Negates, and even if this card minimum just checks Desiree for me, it's insane. And if it doesn't check Desiree, then I can already concede the fact that my opponent probably doesn't have hand traps, because if they're willing to let their hand get banished, then they probably don't have any hand interactions, which means that this card did its job anyways, because what it's essential for is hand information, very similar to Triple Tactics Talents. What I'm doing here is I'm just checking off the unknown, because the known variables are a lot easier to play around, and this deck's really good at breaking boards. It's the unknown that could be a problem. It's the Mourners, it's the Ashes, the Veilers, the Impermanences that are face down, that if they have those, you could check those with the Last Stand. So between this and the Musket Engine, it's really good at checking the unknown. The known is easier to play through and easier to play around, and that's the board that you're breaking, is the known. It's the unknown, the face downs in the hand that you want to worry about more. And this card covers it. It's really good. It's a quick play. It's pretty bonkers. The last effect doesn't come up much, because I think most people just send monsters they control until they have at least 2. So that they still have a board that you can actually play into, or a board that they can actually defend themselves with. But if your opponent has 3 monsters, after this card resolves, your opponent cannot activate monster effects this turn. That to me is just never going to come up, because that's just going to blanket their entire board. So they're never going to leave 3. So if they have 3, they're going to send 1. If they have 4, I believe they're going to send 2 and keep like the 2 most vital. Like they might keep, for example, like an Apollousa and a Flamberge, and still be able to like Flamberge the IP in the Spell Trap Zone. And that's fine to me, because I'm taking all their hand traps, and all I have to worry about is a face down Impermanence and the engine that they have that I can see. So I think this card's phenomenal. As far as non-engine goes, it's probably the best card in my deck. It overperforms the most. It has some of the highest rolls that you can get with this card. It's pretty crazy. I like Link Into the Veins a lot. Because I'm on the Unchained cards, its second effect is actually coming up a bit. It comes up to add Engravers back. It comes up to add Muskets back. And the card's just really, really superb. It's not only just going to essentially be like a Branded Loss, Magical Meltdown-esque card. Like, you're going to summon a monster from hand, link with it, and then that link monster, you basically just get to play Solitaire. But its graveyard effect is pretty bonkers, because like you are playing Unchained cards, and you can forcibly pop your own cards with like Shavara, get so much free real estate, so much full value off of the Unchained Soul of Rage adding back, off of your Diabolica add back, off of this add back. You can get a lot of advantage and like just a lot of recursion. So it's really nice. Talents is just one of the most broken cards in the format. Everybody and their mom's playing hand traps, and everybody and their mom wants in on an Apollousa. So I think this card's just superb. If I'm playing against Fire, or in general, this is my rule of thumb. If I play against any deck and I'm going first, I always look at hand and check for engine. Even if my hand's like weak and I could draw 2, if my hand's weak, it's still playable. It's just not the best. I want to check for engine every single time. I want to know what they have left. If they have 2 more hand traps and 1 engine and an extender, and the extender only works with the engine, I'm going to take the engine and let them keep their hand traps. If I'm playing against Fire, a majority of the time, I'm going to take Flamberge to check the Apollousa and check the Princess Engrave. So it essentially says, chain Flamberge right now. Go ahead, summon IP, or let your field spell do it. And that's fine, because now all I'm doing is basically playing around an IP. So Talents is superb. I think it's one of the best blowouts going second. The Goods is pretty nice too. It's pretty nice. It can be cute with Doc, but its main purpose is to dump the Black Goat, because it does allow it to effectively trade as a going second card. Next up for the engine, we're playing 3 copies of Prosperity. This card's really, really nice in this deck. However, the extra deck can get tight, and in scenarios where you are playing through like a ton of interruptions, a lot of your extra deck's utility is like super necessary. However, the consistency is worth it. We're playing 3 copies of Engraver, 3 copies of Tractus. Let me align this up real nice with it. And then I'm also playing 3 copies of Sanct. This is essentially 12 starters that are not muskets, and these are the starters that I oftentimes prefer to open because they have more options. I'm still on 3 copies of Starfire. In my original musket list before the Fiendsmith cards came out, the only 3 of that I played were the Starfire, Caspire, and then I was on 2 Doc, 2 Kid Brave, 1 Calamity, and 1 Wild. Now it's 3 Starfire, 3 Caspar, 1 Doc, and 1 Calamity. Calamity is actually super essential. I know some people don't care for this, But there are matchups where like being able to make a rank 4 like Baguska or Dweller is super imperative, and I love the option. I'm not maining any of them right now, but it does give you a little bit of like extra coverage and utility. I do have a combo that I may or may not show in this video that is actually going to get you into Flame Banshee, into Protoss and or Colossus, and also and or a Dweller or a Baguska. You have all those options. I'm not sure. I feel like the Flame Banshee package has like the highest ceiling going first, because like this deck just needs some type of blowout win condition going first, and that's why I haven't seen really any musket lists at all playing Calamities. I did my research. I just think none of them are on it, and I think also it's just because like they don't see the effect coming up, but for me it's the level, because Starfire can't summon herself, so it gives you the option to have another level 4, and you have a ton of ways to access Starfire. You essentially are playing like 9, almost 12 copies of Starfire if you count Prosperity. And Starfire just does a lot. And like Max can do a lot going second, but going first is where it matters to be able. And if you guys are wondering how you're actually getting the banished cards, it's through Synced. So yeah, Synced banishing actually turns on the whatever his name is. I'm trying to think of the fire Arch Nemesis monster that searches Protoss. It's just an idea. It still needs some fine tuning. Like I don't think that you're always going to need to play the Reaper Dachis, but like it just needs a little bit of fine tuning, I think. But I'm just saying like those combos are all available because of Calamity, and they're not without her. The inboard that you have is still nice though. It's just susceptible to board breakers. It's still going to lose to Droplets, Dark Holes, Raigekis, top deck Imperms. You know, you can struggle. You'll always have Rage access in Grave, which is pretty clean with it, but the rest of your board is pretty vulnerable. And I just like a tried and true win condition, because going first, your win condition, you know, obviously you should always be identifying your lose condition and playing around it. But I like win conditions that are very, very unsusceptible to counterplay. And if my opponent is allowed me to play my board uninterrupted, and I did end on it, then I can concede the fact that they don't have hand traps and they have board breakers, and that's where like Protoss and stuff like that can be really handy. So yeah, these cards are these cards are superb though. These cards are phenomenal, and they do what they need to do. And then lastly, what I have is just engine requirements that I don't really care to draw. Cross Dom, 1 Desperado. Dancing Needle is insane this format. This card's crazy. So because these cards exist, and there's also Last Stand, just because these cards exist, this is where the threat of Musketeers like comes from, is because a card like Castfire or Starfire can convert into cards like these. So unironically, a lot of muskets can actually out a multitude of different boards and a multitude of different cards, because they can search any weapon they need. If you guys didn't know, each magical musketeer in the artwork is a different weapon. So like this is Wild's weapon, this is Starfire's weapon, is the Dancing Needle. Desperado actually belongs to Calamity, and Cross Domination belongs to Kid Brave. Really sick, bro. This deck's actually really, really cool. And the people who actually like played it back in the day and like played it like OG, you guys kind of probably already know. Like I used to organize my deck profiles and put each musket next to their weapon, because I just thought it was really, really cool. But yeah, this is pretty much all you need right now. These are extremely valuable as the utility-esque toolbox that they offer to be able to navigate through established boards and to kind of have the options readily available to you to deal with whatever problematic cards are remaining. Because a lot of times when you get to this point, there's just a little bit left of the board to clean up, and that's what these do. This checks follow-up. This is obviously going to hit blowouts like Imperm Droplet. These cards actually check Appaloosa and IP Masquerena. So resolving Max off Link into the range pretty much breaks the entire board. If it's fire, if it's like Ubel, like, dude, it's insane. Shavara, the Chamber. These are just engine requirements that I don't like drawing, but they're okay to draw. Nightmare Magician is actually a proxy for Diablos or Diabla. She's basically a fiend who reads the following. If she's sent to the grave by card effect, she can add a fiend from grave to hand. That's the effect I'm using for it. And if she's in a hand and a fiend leaves by card effect, you can like summon her from hand or grave. Essentially, what she is she's just part of the main combo that this deck has, which is going to be utilized through Aerial Eater, and you're going to be sending her off Aerial Eater to use her effect to add the Fiend Smith Engraver back from your grave to hand, so that you can extend into your full combo. She's kind of a brick, but she's a nice brick because she has an effect in hand too. The extra deck is pretty tight. It's going to be 1 Max, 1 Requiem, 1 Yama, 1 Sequence, 1 Soul of Rage, 1 SP. Anguish is broken. I really like this card a lot. Anguish into access code is really, really nice. I love the application of like Anguish hitting something that actually triggers and summoning access code and like denying like the floaters, denying the Mirror Jade. It's a really, really clean card. One Appaloosa. It can be part of your inboard. Oftentimes, I just don't go for it. I've been thinking about playing the Silhouette. And then we have Desiree, Lacrima, Necro Equip. I love how this card really does, like, oftentimes just say draw. It's a really, really nice, like, middle piece. It's not part of your inboard, but it's like one of those, like, in between. Very similar to, like, Max and Requiem and Yama. Like, this is a facilitator. It's really, really nice. Oftentimes when you make this, you're still going to be drawing because whether you're open in Engraver or not, your main combo can always get Engraver back. So this card's really, really clean. The Aerial Eater, this is actually mainly to dump the Diablos, but it has other applications as well. We have one DD King Wave High King, DDD Wave High King Caesar, and then one Typhon. I like Typhon a lot in this deck because it really doesn't harm you. It is part of the cleanup. There's always going to be one or two cards that you kind of need to clean up, and once you've resolved your max, got the muskets that you need, the proper weapons to deal with the situation, slapping a Typhon, especially like a preemptive Typhon, is really, really nice. I always like this card in my Labyrinth deck because like people literally like, you could summon Typhon after you baited out the IP, and it was just like really, really clean to cut off follow-up. So yeah, card's nice, card's nice. Alright, so next we're just going to show you guys a one card combo, which is essentially just going to be what one Musketeer does. This is going to be pretty clean, you guys, honestly. Shout out to my boy Dinka. We're going to normal summon Doc, link him off. We're going to go into Max, link our Max off, go into Requiem, activate the Requiem, and we're going to go into our Engraver, equip the Requiem off of its effect, and we're going to contact Fuse. We are going to make Princess. Next, we're going to use Engraver to put back our Max, summon him, and then we're going to link these two off. And that's what's nice about the muskets is you get the extra light fiend just off of the normal summon, and the normal summon's an extra light fiend. So it's really, really clean. It's actually, it comes up a lot, and it skips a lot of steps. If you were playing like Fiendsmith in another deck, you'd have to go through more loopholes. What we're going to do next is summon Sequence, activate the Sequence effect. And what we're going to go ahead and do here is we're going to put back our Requiem and our Doc, which is just whatever musket that you normal summon. And you're going to summon Aerial Eater, which requires two fiends with the same attributes. So you use two light fiends. You're going to use Aerial Eater's effect to dump the girl. Use her effect to add back the Engraver. And then you can, at any time you want, make Yama. I like to make Yama because if I haven't got Nib now, at this point, it's like if you have Nib, then the Yama's actually going to play through the Nib. So make Yama. Go ahead and grab your Shavara. Okay, we can activate Engraver. Engraver effect to go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Fiendsmith's Tract. Okay. And from here, we can activate our Aerial Eater. What we're going to do is banish the Necro-Equipped Princess and the girl. Summon him. And then we're going to make our Rage. And this is something that you can do going first, which does give the deck a lot of power going first. And the consistency, because it's just basically any normal summon. You have like literally 3 Engraver, 3 Tract, plus the actual 8 muskets, which is pretty nice, and the Prosperities. You're going to make Rage. And then what we're going to do is we're going to activate Shavara, targeting the Rage. Pop it, trigger the Rage and the Yama. The Rage is going to add back the Engraver, and the Yama is going to bring back the Aerial Eater. You're going to go ahead and pop your Shavara off resolving the Yama. And then Shavara is going to set Chamber. What we're going to do next is activate Tract, and we're going to add Caspar or Starfire. It depends how much gas you actually have. If you have a way to trigger 2 muskets, then get Starfire. It's going to like insulate a lot, and it's going to have a higher ceiling. Discard a random card in your hand. And the next thing that we're going to do here is banish the Tract to Fusion Summon. So we're going to fuse these 2 off into our boy, Lacrima, and activate Lacrima to go ahead and special summon back the Caspar, because this does work for any Light Fiend. A lot of the Fiendsmith cards just work for Light Fiends. That's what makes muskets so ideal, and it allows you to utilize the cards to their fullest capabilities instead of just only be exclusive to working with Engraver. It actually works for the entire deck, which is pretty clean. Then you're going to overlay these 2 into our DDD. And what you're going to have here, and be sure that you're summoning the cast bar under the zone that Chamber's in. And what you're going to have here is some pretty nice interactions, some follow-up. You have a little bit of insulation through at least a Dark Ruler or a Droplet. But you have the 2 interruptions off Caesar. You also have, anytime you want, Rage into SP, which is this. The Rage into SP and Caesar are the most vital inboard pieces of any Unchained variant. And it's really cool that you don't have to play Unchained cards and you can just play Fiend monsters. And Fiend monsters, with a little bit of consistency, can always get you access to Caesar and Rage, which is enough, actually. Caesar and Rage is oftentimes enough if your opponent's working with only Engine. They can trade with enough. Like, Rage specifically is really, really clean into the fire matchup if they're starting with the Diabell Star. Like, Rage just completely nullifies that interaction, and putting up the SP so that if they just, like, normal summon an Ash, you can just clear the Ash out. And sure, they can still get Poplar, but clearing the Ash out can cut off access to Flamberge and force them to actually go straight from Poplar into the Snake Eye. And that's just off of the Rage. So this is really nice because this can trigger cast bar, and depending on what you can telegraph that your opponent has as far as extensions, any public knowledge, you're just going to search whatever gun you need off of cast bar. So the inboard's clean. It's not the best, but for a deck that is meant to blind second, it's nice to have options to actually have a really strong inboard that's facilitated off one card that can insulate at least one board breaker. And it also is pretty clean and nifty in the hand traps, because you can pivot a lot of different directions whenever you're just utilizing the Fiendsmith cards, because they truly don't really have a super high requirement to be able to utilize them. So it's really cool. It's really easy to get extension into the combo, and it's pretty safe into a lot of like the lower impact hand traps. There's not really a point where Nibiru is just like so bonkers, because like they can hold it until right before you get to Caesar and you'll have like insulation through it, or they'll use it earlier, which makes it easier to play through. So it's a really nice combo. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't do drugs. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. Let me know what you think about the list. It's just my take, my innovation, you know. If you guys have any tips or any type of advice that you want to give concerning the list, let me know in the comment section below. Peace.